It all started with a phone call I never expected. My doctor's voice was trembling when he said, "Come right away. It's urgent." At that moment, I thought it was about my health. But I was wrong. The shocking truth wasn't about me at all. It was about my family, about my son-in-law, and the dark secret he had been hiding from us for years. Imagine getting an urgent call that changes everything you believe about the people you love. This is not just a story about betrayal. It's a story about family drama, hidden secrets, and the terrible truth that can destroy trust forever. Stay with me until the end, because once you hear what I discovered, you will never look at your own family the same way again. The morning started out like any other. Sunlight streamed through the curtains, and the smell of freshly brewed coffee filled my kitchen. I remember humming a little tune as I prepared breakfast, thinking about nothing more than the small details of daily life: paying bills, folding laundry, and perhaps visiting my son and daughter-in-law later that weekend. Life seemed calm, almost boring in its routine, and I thought that was a blessing. But then the phone rang. It wasn't unusual for my doctor's office to call now and then, usually for appointment reminders or test results. Still, something about the sharp tone of the ringtone cut into my peaceful morning like a warning bell. I picked up, balancing the phone against my ear as I wiped my hands on a dish towel. The voice on the other end was trembling. It was my doctor. "Mrs. Harris," he said, his voice low and urgent. "You need to come to my office immediately. Please, don't delay." My heart skipped a beat. In that instant, my mind raced through every possibility. Was it my health? Had one of my recent checkups revealed something terrible? Cancer? A hidden illness? The way his words carried both authority and fear made me feel as though the floor had been pulled out from beneath me. I pressed the phone closer, my voice unsteady. "Doctor, is it serious? Is something wrong with me?" There was a pause on the line, a pause so heavy it pressed into my chest. Then he whispered, "It's not about you, but it's urgent. Please just come." And then the line went dead. For a moment, I stood frozen in the middle of my kitchen. The coffee continued to drip, and the eggs sizzled in the pan, but my world had shifted. Not about me? If not me, then who? My son? My daughter-in-law? Something inside me knew, deep down, that my life would never be the same after that call. I grabbed my keys with shaking hands and rushed out the door. The drive to the doctor's office was only 15 minutes, but it felt like hours. My mind replayed his words over and over. "It's not about you." By the time I reached the office, my palms were sweating and my heart was pounding so loudly, it felt as though the entire waiting room could hear it. The receptionist gave me a puzzled look as I stumbled inside, breathless. "My doctor, he called me," I gasped. "He said it was urgent." She nodded quickly, almost too quickly, and without a word, led me to a small office in the back. The blinds were half closed, letting in slivers of afternoon light. My doctor sat at his desk, but the usual calm on his face was gone. Instead, his eyes were clouded with concern. "Please, sit," he said softly. I lowered myself into the chair, every nerve in my body on edge. "Doctor," I whispered, "please tell me what this is about. I can't stand the suspense." He folded his hands on the desk, took a deep breath, and looked me straight in the eyes. "This is going to be difficult to hear," he said carefully. "But I couldn't stay silent. It concerns your family, specifically your son-in-law." The words hit me like a slap. My son-in-law? Why would a doctor be calling me about him? My thoughts spiraled. Was he sick? Injured? Or had he done something worse? The doctor hesitated, clearly struggling with the weight of what he had to reveal. I discovered something in his medical records. Something he has hidden from everyone, including your son. In that instant, my stomach twisted into knots. This wasn't about an illness or an accident. This was about secrets, dark, hidden truths that had somehow landed in my doctor's hands. My voice cracked. What kind of secret? He leaned forward, his voice low and urgent, as if afraid the walls themselves might overhear. Mrs. Harris, your son-in-law has been hiding something terrible, and if you don't act quickly, it could tear your family apart. I couldn't breathe. My hands trembled in my lap as the air seemed to vanish from the room. All I could hear was the pounding of my heart and the echo of his words. Tear your family apart. In that moment, I didn't know what to believe. But one thing was certain. My life was no longer my own. I had stepped into a story of betrayal, suspense, and secrets darker than I ever imagined. And I wasn't sure if I wanted to know the truth, or if it was already too late. The words of my doctor echoed in my ears long after he spoke them. Your son-in-law has been hiding something terrible. I sat in that chair, frozen, unable to process what he meant. My son-in-law? The man I welcomed into my family? The husband of my only child? Surely this had to be some misunderstanding. I shook my head slowly. Doctor, please, you must explain. What exactly are you trying to tell me? He sighed, adjusting his glasses, his expression pained. I discovered irregularities in his medical files. At first I thought it was a simple error. But after double-checking and contacting other sources, I realized these weren't mistakes. They were deliberate. Your son-in-law has been lying, not only to your family, but to institutions, to people who trusted him. This is more than a medical concern. This is a matter of deception. My breath caught in my throat. Deception. The word rolled over me like a wave, suffocating and cold. I wanted to demand specifics, but at the same time, I was terrified of the answers. My son-in-law, Daniel, had always been polite, charming even. He was attentive to my daughter, respectful to me. He had built an image of a hard-working, honest man. Could it all have been a facade? The doctor leaned closer, lowering his voice as if the truth itself was dangerous. I shouldn't even be telling you this, but as your physician and as someone who has known your family for years, I felt you had a right to know. What Daniel has hidden could put your family at risk. You need to prepare yourself. My heart pounded so hard it hurt. I felt as though I were trapped in the middle of some suspenseful drama, but this wasn't a story on TV. This was my life, my family. Prepare myself for what? I whispered. He hesitated, eyes flickering toward the door as though afraid someone might walk in. That's something you'll need to uncover directly from him. All I can tell you is this. The records reveal a pattern of lies, and the consequences will not be small. I've already seen signs of potential fraud and manipulation. The words stabbed through me. Fraud, manipulation. My stomach turned. How could this possibly be true? I rose from the chair, suddenly restless, pacing the room like a caged animal. You're asking me to believe that the man my daughter loves, the father of my grandchildren, has been living a double life? You're telling me everything I thought I knew about him is a lie? The doctor nodded solemnly. I wish I didn't have to say it, but yes. Sometimes, family drama doesn't just come from arguments or misunderstandings. It comes from secrets so dark that they can destroy the very foundation of trust. Mrs. Harris, you must be careful. If you confront him unprepared, it could lead to something dangerous. Dangerous. The words sliced through me. My knees went weak. and I lowered myself back into the chair, clutching the armrests as if they might keep me from falling apart. I thought back to every family gathering, every holiday meal. Daniel sitting at the table, laughing, carving the turkey, playing with his kids. Nothing about him had ever seemed off. But then again, don't the worst secrets often hide behind the most perfect smiles? I looked at the doctor, my eyes filling with tears. Why me? Why tell me this instead of my daughter? She's his wife. She has a right to know. His expression softened. Because you are stronger, and I believe you can protect her. If she hears this without preparation, the shock might crush her. But you've lived through life's storms. You can handle the truth long enough to decide what must be done. A lump formed in my throat. Strong? I didn't feel strong. I felt shattered. But maybe he was right. Maybe it was my responsibility as a mother to shield my child from devastation, at least until I understood the full scope of what Daniel had done. The doctor handed me a folder, thick with papers. This is all I can give you. Review it carefully. But be cautious. If Daniel discovers you know, I can't guarantee how he will react. I held the folder in my trembling hands, the weight of it heavier than any burden I'd carried before. Inside those pages lay the hidden truth that could unravel my family. As I walked out of the hospital that afternoon, the world seemed different. The sun was still shining. Cars still rushed down the street. People still laughed and went about their day. But for me, everything had changed. The secret sat in my purse, pulsing like a live grenade. I didn't know whether to open it right away or burn it before it destroyed everything I loved. But one thing was clear. My son-in-law's mask was slipping, and I was about to discover the face that lay beneath. That night, I couldn't sleep. The folder sat on my bedside table like a monster lurking in the dark, waiting to devour me. Every time I closed my eyes, I imagined what could be inside. Medical charts, evidence of fraud, maybe even something criminal. My heartbeat echoed in the silence of the room, so loud it felt like it would wake the entire neighborhood. Finally, just past midnight, I couldn't take it anymore. With trembling fingers, I reached for the folder and pulled it into my lap. My hands shook as I opened it, the pages whispering like ghosts as they slid across each other. The first few sheets looked harmless enough. Copies of insurance forms, test results, appointment notes. But as I dug deeper, the truth began to unravel, and with each page, my stomach turned. There were discrepancies everywhere. Fake addresses, different birth dates, documents filed under multiple names, prescriptions obtained using aliases. At first, I thought it was some kind of clerical error. But the deeper I read, the more obvious it became. This was deliberate. My son-in-law, Daniel, had been living a double life. He had falsified his medical records, concealed treatments, and hidden conditions that should have been disclosed. But it went beyond that. There were signs of financial fraud, insurance claims filed under false pretenses, and payments routed through accounts I'd never heard of. It wasn't just a matter of dishonesty. It was calculated deception. I pressed a hand to my mouth, fighting back nausea. The man I had welcomed into my home, trusted with my daughter's happiness, was not the person I thought he was. He wasn't just lying. He was betraying us all. As I turned another page, I found something that chilled me to my core. A record from a neighboring hospital under a different name, but with Daniel's date of birth. It detailed a treatment for a violent injury, one that suggested he had been involved in something far darker than an accident. The notes hinted at police involvement, but the file ended abruptly with no follow-up. My breath came in shallow gasps. Violent injury? Police involvement? Who exactly was this man my daughter had married? The weight of betrayal crushed me. I thought back to the day I first met Daniel. He had smiled so warmly, shaking my hand with such confidence. He had seemed perfect, too perfect maybe. My son had adored him, my daughter had defended him fiercely whenever anyone doubted him. And I had ignored my instincts. Tears blurred my vision as I whispered into the quiet room. How could you do this to us? How could you do this to her? It felt as though the walls were closing in on me. This wasn't just a shocking discovery. It was a terrible secret, one that threatened to tear my family apart from the inside. But beneath the fear and heartbreak, anger began to stir. I had devoted my life to protecting my child, shielding her from harm, guiding her toward happiness. And now, the man who had promised to love her, to cherish her, was the very one betraying her trust. I clenched my fists, the papers crumpling in my grip. I wanted to march into their home that very moment, slam the folder on the table, and demand answers. I wanted to expose him, force him to admit the truth in front of my daughter. But the doctor's warning echoed in my head. Be careful. If you confront him unprepared, it could lead to something dangerous. Dangerous. That word gnawed at me. What if Daniel wasn't just a liar, but something worse? What if uncovering the whole truth put us all in jeopardy? I closed the folder, pressing it against my chest as though I could absorb its poison and keep it away from my daughter. My mind raced with questions I didn't want to answer. Should I tell her now? Should I wait? Should I dig deeper before I destroy her marriage? Sleep never came. I spent the night staring at the ceiling, listening to the ticking clock that seemed to mock me with every passing second. By dawn, I knew what I had to do. I couldn't stay silent. The truth was like a wound. It festered in darkness. But maybe, just maybe, if I dragged it into the light, there was still a chance to save my family. But I also knew that confronting Daniel directly would be reckless. I needed more evidence, something undeniable, something that would reveal who he truly was. So I made a decision. I would investigate. I would uncover every detail of his lies, no matter how painful, no matter how dangerous. Because this wasn't just about protecting my daughter anymore. This was about protecting the very soul of my family from the betrayal of a man we had all trusted. And deep down, I sensed that the heartbreaking truth I had just uncovered was only the beginning. Morning sunlight spilled across the kitchen table as I sat with the folder spread open before me. The papers looked harmless in the golden light, but I knew better. They were poison dressed in ink and paper. Every page whispered of lies and betrayal. And the more I stared at them, the more I realized that if I wanted the full truth, I couldn't stop here. I had to dig deeper. But where could I start? Daniel had woven his life into ours so seamlessly that I didn't know which threads were genuine and which were fabricated. To my daughter, he was a loving husband. To my grandchildren, he was a playful, devoted father. To me, he was, or rather, he had been, a son. But these documents revealed another man entirely. The first clue was in the hospital record under the alias. I copied the file name and the date, noting the hospital's location. It was across town, a place we never had reason to visit. Why would Daniel go there under another name? And why was there mention of police involvement? I decided to find out. The following day, I drove across the city, my nerves buzzing with every mile. The hospital loomed ahead, its glass doors reflecting the sky, a place that promised healing but held secrets in its walls. Inside, I approached the reception desk, clutching the paper in my hands. "Good morning," I said, forcing a smile. "I was hoping to inquire about a medical record. I believe there was a patient treated here under this name." The receptionist glanced at the paper, then back at me. Her polite smile faltered. "I'm sorry, ma'am. We can't disclose patient information without authorization." I expected that answer. Still, something in her eyes told me she recognized the name. I leaned closer, lowering my voice. "Please, I'm family. I just need to know if this person was treated here. That's all." She hesitated, then whispered, "Yes, he was, but I can't say more." That was enough to confirm what I feared. Daniel had indeed been there, living under a different identity. My knees weakened, and I clutched the counter for support. I left the hospital with more questions than answers. Who was Daniel when he wasn't with us? Why the false identity? What was he hiding so desperately that he would go to such lengths to cover his tracks? I knew I couldn't stop there, so I turned to another source, the past. That evening, after everyone had gone to bed, I searched online. Public records, old news articles, anything that could connect Daniel to the alias in those files. Hours passed and frustration mounted, until one headline caught my eye. It was from nearly 10 years ago. A bar fight. A man hospitalized with serious injuries. The name listed in the article matched the alias in the hospital file. And though the photo was grainy, there was no mistaking the face. It was Daniel. My chest tightened as I read the article again and again. According to the report, the police had investigated, but the case never went to trial. The injured man had refused to press charges. Still, the description painted Daniel not as a victim, but as the aggressor. The Daniel I knew, the polite, respectful son-in-law, was capable of violence. Tears welled in my eyes as the image of family dinners, birthday parties, and warm smiles shattered into pieces. I felt as though I'd been living with a stranger. But I couldn't stop. Not now. I printed the article, added it to the growing pile of evidence, and pressed forward. If there was one incident, there could be more, and I was determined to uncover every shadow in his past. The next day, I visited an old friend of mine who had worked in law enforcement. Over tea, I carefully brought up the subject. "Do you remember a case from years back?" I asked, sliding the printed article across the table. "This man, does he look familiar?" My friend studied the photo, his brow furrowing. After a moment, he nodded slowly. "Yes, I remember. That was a messy case. The guy was known to get into trouble. Fights, debts, shady connections. But nothing ever stuck. He was slippery." Slippery. The word made my skin crawl. "Do you know what happened to him after that?" I pressed. He shrugged. "Disappeared. Changed his name, maybe. People like that don't stay in one place long. They reinvent themselves." Reinvent themselves. The pieces clicked together with sickening clarity. Daniel hadn't just lied. He had erased who he once was. He had built an entirely new identity, one carefully constructed to look perfect, stable, trustworthy. And he had brought that false identity straight into my daughter's life. My hands trembled as I held the article again, the truth becoming undeniable. Daniel wasn't just hiding a mistake from his past. He was hiding himself. The realization hit me like a punch to the chest. The family drama I thought I was living through was far darker than I imagined. This wasn't just about deception. It was about survival. My daughter and grandchildren were living with a man whose true nature was buried beneath layers of lies. And if the truth came out, it wouldn't just break hearts. It could shatter lives. I sat at my kitchen table for hours, staring at the pile of evidence I had collected. The hospital files, the newspaper article, the whispers from my friend in law enforcement. The truth was undeniable now. My son-in-law wasn't who he claimed to be. He was a man with a violent past, a man who had erased his own history to create a new life. But how long could a lie like that last? How long before his mask slipped in front of my daughter and grandchildren? The thought haunted me. Every laugh around the dinner table, every smile he gave them, it all felt like a performance now, a carefully rehearsed play designed to keep his secret buried. And I couldn't stand it anymore. I had to confront him. That evening, I drove to my daughter's house. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. A storm brewed in the sky above, clouds heavy with rain, mirroring the storm inside my chest. When I arrived, my daughter was busy putting the kids to bed. Daniel was in the living room, sitting comfortably on the couch, scrolling through his phone as though the world wasn't built on lies. He looked up when I entered, smiling warmly. "Mom! What a surprise! Didn't know you were coming over tonight." His voice was calm, friendly, so normal it made me sick. I didn't return the smile. Instead, I set my purse on the coffee table and sat down across from him. For a moment, silence hung heavy between us, broken only by the distant patter of rain against the windows. "Daniel," I said quietly, "we need to talk." He tilted his head, puzzled. "Sure, what's on your mind?" I took a deep breath, my heart pounding. I know about the hospital records, the false names, the fight, the police. The effect was immediate. His smile vanished. His eyes flickered with something sharp. Fear, anger, calculation. He leaned back slowly, setting his phone aside. "I don't know what you think you know," he said evenly, but his voice had lost its warmth. I reached into my purse and pulled out the folder, dropping it onto the table with a heavy thud. Paper spilled across the wood like spilled secrets. "I know enough," I said. "Enough to see the truth. You've been lying to us, to my daughter, to this whole family." His jaw tightened. For a moment, he said nothing. Then slowly, he leaned forward, his hands clasped together. "You shouldn't have gone digging," he murmured. The words sent a chill through me. "I had to," I replied firmly, though my voice trembled. "You married my daughter. You brought children into this world. You made yourself part of my family, and I will not sit by and watch you destroy them with your lies." His eyes darkened, and for the first time, I saw the man behind the mask. There was no charm, no easy smile, only a hardness that made my stomach twist. "You think you know the truth?" he said bitterly. "You don't know anything." "Then tell me," I demanded, my voice breaking. "Tell me who you really are. Tell me why you've been living under false names. Tell me why there are police reports tied to your past. I deserve to know. She deserves to know." For a moment, silence stretched between us, heavy and suffocating. Then Daniel stood, pacing the room, running a hand through his hair. His calm facade was cracking. Finally, he turned back to me, his expression torn between anger and exhaustion. "Fine," he snapped. "You want the truth? I wasn't always the man you know. I got into trouble. Bad trouble. Fights, debts, the wrong people. I was reckless, stupid, violent. And yes, I almost destroyed myself. That's who I was." My chest ached as the words sank in. "But I changed," he continued, his voice rising. "I left that life behind. I built something new. Your daughter, your family, gave me a chance to be better, and I wasn't going to let my past ruin it." I shook my head, tears streaming down my face. "You don't understand. By hiding it, You've already ruined it. Do you think she won't feel betrayed when she finds out you lied about everything? Do you think the truth won't break her heart?" He slammed his fist onto the table, making the papers jump. "I did it to protect her. To protect all of you. If people knew who I used to be, none of this would exist. You'd never have let me into your family. And I love her. I love those kids. I can't lose them." The raw emotion in his voice nearly broke me. But the damage was done. The truth had been exposed, and there was no going back. I rose slowly, my legs trembling. "Love built on lies isn't love at all," I whispered. "It's a prison, and you've trapped my daughter inside it." His eyes burned into mine, fury and desperation swirling together. For a moment, I thought he might lash out, but instead, he collapsed back onto the couch, burying his face in his hands. I gathered the papers, tucking them back into the folder. My heart felt like it was shattering with every step toward the door. "Daniel?" I said softly, pausing at the threshold. "The truth always comes out. You can't hide forever." And with that, I left. The rain was falling harder now, soaking my clothes as I stumbled to my car. I sat behind the wheel, gripping the steering wheel as sobs shook my body. I had confronted him. The mask had slipped, and though he confessed to parts of his past, I knew there were still secrets lurking in the shadows. The confrontation had given me answers, but it had also raised new questions. And now, the hardest part was yet to come. Deciding whether to tell my daughter the truth or to let the lie continue in silence. I barely slept that night. The rain tapped against my window until dawn, but it wasn't the storm outside that kept me awake. It was the storm inside. My confrontation with Daniel replayed in my mind like a broken record. His angry confession, the raw desperation in his voice, the way his mask had shattered right before me. By morning, my eyes were swollen from tears. But worse than my exhaustion was the decision gnawing at me. Should I tell my daughter? I couldn't carry this burden alone anymore. The truth was a weight too heavy for one heart to bear. Yet I knew, once spoken, it would break hers. Still, silence felt like betrayal. That afternoon, I called her. "Can you come by, sweetheart? There's something important we need to talk about." Her voice was cheerful, innocent. "Of course, Mom. I'll bring the kids." "No," I said quickly, my throat tight. "Just you." The pause on the other end told me she felt my urgency. "All right, I'll be there soon." When she arrived, I could see the confusion in her eyes. She dropped her purse on the chair and sat across from me at the kitchen table, just as Daniel had the night before. "Mom, you're scaring me," she said softly. "What's going on?" I reached for her hands, holding them tightly. They trembled in mine. "It's about Daniel," I whispered. "There's something you need to know." Her smile faltered. "What do you mean?" And then I told her everything. About the files, the reports, the lies, the confrontation. My words poured out like poison I had held too long. At first, she shook her head, laughing nervously. No, that can't be true. Daniel would never. He's not that kind of man." I saw it with my own eyes. I insisted, tears spilling down my cheeks. "He admitted it to me. He wasn't always the man you think he is. He has a violent past. He lied about who he was." Her face crumbled. She pulled her hands away, pressing them to her mouth. "Why are you doing this, Mom? Why are you trying to destroy my marriage?" The words cut deeper than a knife. "I'm not trying to destroy it. I'm trying to protect you. Don't you see? If he lied about this, what else could he be hiding?" Her eyes filled with tears, But there was anger there too. He's my husband, the father of my children. Whatever mistakes he made before, that's in the past. He's different now. Is he? I asked, my voice trembling. Or has he just hidden it better this time? She pushed back from the table, standing so suddenly the chair scraped against the floor. You don't understand. You only see the worst in him because you went looking for it. But I see the man who tucks our kids into bed every night, who holds me when I'm scared, who promised me a future. I rose too, reaching for her. Sweetheart, love doesn't erase the truth. If you keep living in denial, the truth will tear this family apart. Her eyes blazed with fury and pain. No, Mom, you're the one tearing us apart. The words shattered me. That night, my daughter confronted Daniel herself. I wasn't there, but I imagined it. Her accusing questions, his practiced charm, his desperate explanations. Later, she called me, her voice hoarse from crying. He told me everything, she whispered. He told me about his past, about the fights, the mistakes. But he swore he changed. He swore he loves me. Mom, what am I supposed to do? My heart broke for her. You have to decide if you can live with the lies, or if the truth is too heavy to ignore. Silence stretched. Then she said, I love him. I can't just throw it all away. But I don't know if I'll ever look at him the same again. That was the beginning of the unraveling. In the days that followed, the house that once felt warm and safe grew cold. My daughter and Daniel barely spoke without tension. Small arguments became explosive. The children sensed the shift, asking why Mommy and Daddy were so sad. Family dinners were unbearable. I watched them sit across from each other, eyes full of hurt, words unspoken. And I knew the truth had cracked the foundation of their marriage. One evening, Daniel pulled me aside after dinner. His voice was low, harsh. You've ruined everything, he hissed. She looks at me differently now. Do you know what that feels like? I held his gaze. She deserves the truth. And if you truly loved her, you would have told her yourself. His jaw clenched. If I lose her, it's on you. No, I whispered. It's on the lies you built this family on. The days turned into weeks, and the divide only deepened. My daughter was caught in an impossible choice: hold on to the man she loved or face the betrayal of everything he had hidden. I saw her breaking under the weight of it, torn between love and truth, and I knew the choice would come, not today, not tomorrow, but soon. A family once bound by love was now bound by secrets, silence, and shattered trust. And for the first time, I feared that nothing could put the pieces back together again. The tension in the house had become unbearable. Days passed like ghosts, silent, heavy, each one filled with unspoken words. My daughter drifted through her routines like someone lost in a fog, her once bright eyes clouded by doubt and sorrow. Daniel tried to act normal, smiling at the children, cooking dinner, pretending nothing had changed, but the truth clung to the walls like smoke. It was everywhere, in every glance, every silence, every tear my daughter wiped away when she thought no one was looking. I knew a storm was coming, and it came sooner than I expected. It was a Sunday afternoon when my daughter finally broke. She called me, her voice trembling. Mom, can you come over? I can't do this alone anymore. My heart ached at her words. I drove over immediately, each mile heavy with dread. When I arrived, The children were at a neighbor's house. The living room felt like a courtroom. Daniel sitting on one side, my daughter on the other, both of them pale and tense, as if preparing for a trial. She looked up at me with tears streaming down her face. "I need to make a decision today," she whispered. "I can't live like this anymore." Daniel reached for her hand, but she pulled it back. His face crumpled. "Please, don't do this," he begged. "I told you everything. I laid it all bare because I love you. Doesn't that count for something?" She shook her head, her sobs breaking the silence. "You didn't tell me, Daniel. My mother found out. You let me live a lie. Do you know how that feels? To realize the man I trusted with my life, my children's lives, was hiding who he really was?" Daniel's eyes shone with desperation. "I was protecting you. I didn't want my past to poison what we had. I changed. I became a better man. For you. Can't you see that?" Her voice trembled with both love and pain. "Yes, you changed. But love without truth isn't love. It's a cage. And I've been trapped inside it." The words hung in the air like a verdict. I sat quietly, my heart torn in two. Watching my daughter suffer was agony, but this was her battle, her choice. All I could do was bear witness. Daniel dropped to his knees in front of her, his voice cracking. "Don't throw us away. Please, think of the kids. Think of everything we've built. I can't lose you. I can't lose them." Her hands trembled as she touched his face. For a moment, hope flickered in his eyes. But then she whispered, "You already lost me the moment you chose lies over trust." Daniel froze. The words cut deeper than any blade. He staggered back as though struck. His face collapsed into his hands. My daughter stood, her entire body shaking. She turned to me, her voice barely audible. "Mom, I can't stay with him. No matter how much I love him, I can't raise my children in a house built on deception. They deserve better. I deserve better." Tears blurred my vision, but I nodded. "You're making the right choice, sweetheart. The truth is painful, but it sets you free." Daniel looked up at us, his eyes red and broken. "Please, don't do this. I can change. I'll do anything." But she shook her head, firm now, her sorrow transforming into strength. "No, Daniel. This is my final decision. I won't live another day in the shadow of your lies." The next hours passed in silence. Daniel packed a bag while my daughter sat in the bedroom, holding herself together for the sake of her children. When he finally walked out the door, the sound of it closing echoed through the house like thunder. The children came home later, asking where Daddy was. My daughter knelt down, tears in her eyes but voice steady, and said, "Daddy made mistakes, but Mommy loves you more than anything, and we're going to be okay." It broke my heart, but I saw something in her I hadn't seen in weeks. Strength. That night, as I tucked my grandchildren into bed, I felt the weight of everything that had happened. This family had been torn apart, yes, but it was also being rebuilt, piece by painful piece, on the foundation of truth. Later, my daughter sat beside me, her head resting on my shoulder. "Mom," she whispered, "it hurts so much, but I know I did the right thing. Maybe someday he'll prove he's really changed, but I can't gamble my children's future on a lie." I kissed her hair, holding her tightly. "You did the bravest thing a person can do, sweetheart. You chose truth over comfort, love over illusion, and in time, that courage will heal you." She nodded, tears falling silently. And in that moment I knew, though this chapter of her life had ended in heartbreak, it had also opened a door to freedom, to honesty, to a future where love would be real because it would be built on truth. The family was broken, but from the cracks, something stronger would eventually grow. And as a mother, all I could do was walk beside her, proud of the strength she had found in the darkest of times. Time has a way of softening even the sharpest wounds. In the weeks that followed Daniel's departure, the house felt both emptier and freer. There was silence, yes, but it was a peaceful silence, not the suffocating weight of secrets. My daughter cried often at first. Nights were the hardest. The absence beside her in bed was a constant reminder of everything she had lost. But with each passing day, she grew a little stronger. Her laughter began to return, tentative but real, and the children slowly adjusted to their new routine. I watched her with quiet pride. She had faced the most painful truth a woman can face, that the man she loved wasn't who she thought he was, and she had chosen honesty over illusion. It nearly broke her, but it didn't. She survived. And more than that, she began to heal. One evening, as we sat together on the porch, watching the sunset, she turned to me and said softly, "Mom, I thought the truth destroyed my family, but I see now, it saved us. If I had kept living in the lie, it would have eaten me alive. I would have taught my children that love means pretending. But now, they'll know love means honesty, and that's worth the pain." Her words brought tears to my eyes, because she was right. The truth hurts. It cuts deep, shatters illusions, and sometimes tears families apart. But it also frees us. It gives us the chance to rebuild, stronger than before, on a foundation that will not crumble. Daniel's shadow will always linger in our story, but it will not define it. What defines us is the choice my daughter made, the courage to walk through heartbreak for the sake of a better tomorrow. And as I hold my grandchildren in my arms, I know this: families are not destroyed by the truth. They are destroyed by lies. The storm had passed. The scars remained. But from those scars, something new had begun to grow. Something honest. Something real. And in that quiet evening light, I finally believed that no matter how dark the truth may be, love rooted in honesty will always find a way forward.